Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, grab a seat and let's dive right into this introductory lecture on the Greek cosmos. If you strip away all the modern pop culture adaptations of these ancient tales, what you actually find is just truly fascinating. We're going to discover that the Greek universe wasn't built by some benevolent creator thoughtfully speaking the world into existence. There was absolutely no merciful plan here. Instead, as we'll explore today, the cosmos was built through this terrifying cycle of generational paranoia, deep-seated anxiety, and violently suppressed succession. Now, it's fascinating how the ancient Greek concept of chaos completely dismantles our modern assumptions. Today, you might be thinking of chaos as just noise, confusion, or a messy room, right? Well, scrap that. To the Greeks, chaos wasn't disorder. It was the terrifyingly vast story before the story began. Imagine this living, limitless mass where matter and the void, life and death all just coexisted, fused into a single presence without any definitive shape or name. And it's from this profound, unsettled mass that literally everything else begins to emerge.
To structure our time today, let's look at our historical roadmap. We're going to examine three specific divine generations, tracing exactly how power shifts from the ancient, abstract primordial forces to the raw, physical might of the Titans, and finally over to the recognizable Olympians. The common thread we'll be tracking across all three of these eras is how power is never, and I mean never, peacefully handed down. It's violently seized from one era to the next.
So here is our syllabus for this explainer. We'll be covering 1. Cosmos from chaos. 2. The first tyrant. 3. Blood of the sky. 4. The second tyrant. And we'll wrap up with number 5, the final succession. Let's get right to it.
All right, part 1, Cosmos from chaos, the primordial forces.
Let's examine our very first phase, where we see the universe start to organize itself completely without instructions, spawning forces so ancient and so powerful that they commanded absolute dread right from the jump. Notice how the primordial being Nyx, or night, independently births these terrifying concepts. She didn't need a partner to generate Thanatos, peaceful death, or his twin brother Hypnos, sleep. Nor did she need any help to spawn Moros, unnegotiable fate, or Nemesis, retribution. This brilliantly illustrates that from the very first instant of creation, the cosmos was already populated by these formidable forces that living beings fear and simply cannot control. Basically, the universe was instantly dangerous.
Moving right along to part 2, the first tyrant, Uranus and Gaia.
Now we meet Earth, known as Gaia. She generates her own equal to cover her, which is Uranus, the starry sky. And their ensuing union introduces a completely vital theme to our study. The very first instance of a father's paralyzing fear. Cataloging the cosmos reveals this rapid escalation in the terrifying physical power of their children. First, they produce the 12 Titans. These are cosmic forces in godlike bodies. But then they produce the 3 Cyclops, literal mountain-sized giants. And finally, the Hecatonchires, beings so overwhelmingly powerful they possessed 100 arms and 50 heads each. Uranus looked down at these immense, ground-trembling children, and for the very first time in history, a father felt absolute terror toward his own blood. So, what does he do? The crucial point to remember here is that the first imprisonment in the universe had absolutely nothing to do with justice or morality. It was a desperate, tyrannical act by Uranus meant solely to protect his own supremacy. He just shoves these massive children right back into Gaia, deep into the bottomless darkness of Tartarus, causing immense, unrelenting agony to the mother of the earth.
Which brings us to part 3, Blood of the Sky, the fall of Uranus. And here is the inevitable consequence of Uranus's tyranny. As we establish the brutal precedent that in this ancient universe, power cannot be negotiated, it must be taken by blood, we see this brilliant contrast. On one side, you have Gaia, pushed to her absolute physical and emotional limit, secretly forging a massive adamantine sickle. On the other side, her youngest Titan son, Cronus. When she asks her kids for help, the other Titans just freeze in silence. But Cronus steps forward, and he's not doing this to save his siblings, no. He does it out of a cold, calculating desire for the throne. He is a son willing to commit unspeakable violence against his own father just to seize control.
Notice the pattern here as Cronus ambushes his father and violently castrates him with that sickle. The sky god's blood hits the earth, and look at what it generates. We get vengeful monsters like the Furies, who are meant to punish family bloodshed, alongside colossal giants. Yet when Uranus's remains fall into the sea, the foam produces Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. It perfectly proves that in this cosmos, profound beauty and horrifying violence are inextricably linked. This universe is literally built on blood.
Before he fully withdraws, the defeated Uranus hurls this devastating curse at Cronus, that one of his own children will rise against him and seize his power. Remember, this is a vital rule for our lecture. In the Greek universe, the words of a wounded god don't just act as a warning of the future. They actively build it. The prophecy is now set in motion.
On to part 4, the second tyrant, Cronus takes control.
As Cronus takes the celestial throne, he inadvertently traps himself in his father's exact psychological nightmare. Now, on the surface, things actually look perfect. Under Cronus, early humanity supposedly enjoyed a golden age, totally free from war, hunger, and violence. But despite ruling over this supposed paradise, Cronus completely proves our lecture's thesis. Beneath that peaceful surface, he's nothing more than a terrified father. He's unable to sleep, hearing his impending doom in the wind, and seeing the shadow of his father's curse in the eyes of his queen and sister, Rhea.
This staggering sequence shows exactly how Cronus solved his fear. He doesn't bury his kids in the earth like his father did. Instead, he mechanically swallows his first 5 children whole, without even looking at their faces. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, all just devoured to avoid his father's fate. Cronus is completely blind to the tragic irony here. He was becoming the exact same monster he had just violently overthrown.
We can draw a direct, fascinating parallel here between the generations. Rhea, forced to watch her children be casually devoured, reaches the exact same breaking point as her mother, Gaia, did ages ago. But Rhea's rebellion shifts tactics slightly. She uses deception. She descends to a cave in Crete to secretly birth her 6th child, Zeus, and she hands her terrified, unthinking husband a baby-sized rock wrapped in swaddling clothes. The tyrant swallows it whole, completely setting the stage for his own downfall.
And that brings us to part 5, the final succession, the rise of Zeus.
We finally arrive at the climax of our historical roadmap. Zeus's ascent is an absolute masterclass in mythological vengeance. Raised in secret, protected by the Curetes who bang their shields together to hide his infant cries from his father, Zeus grows up, disguises himself, and feeds Cronus a magical potion. This forces the tyrant to violently vomit up the stone and all 5 of those fully grown siblings. What follows is the Titanomachy, a devastating cosmic war that ends with Zeus binding his father and the Titans in Tartarus, the very same dark abyss his grandfather Uranus once utilized.
But the violence doesn't end with the Titans. Zeus actually has to secure his brand new throne by fighting Typhon, Gaia's final, terrifying monster, equipped with 100 flaming heads. Zeus absolutely blasts him out of the sky with his newly acquired Cyclops-forged thunderbolts.
Once the dust settles, we see a chilling callback to the start of our lecture. Zeus marries Metis, the personification of cunning intelligence, but then he receives a terribly familiar prophecy. His wife will bear a child who will overthrow him and become king. So, instead of waiting around, Zeus takes a proactive approach and literally swallows his pregnant wife whole. The child, Athena, is born anyway, bursting right out of his head. This allows Zeus to absorb his wife's intelligence and technically dodge the specific wording of the prophecy, maintaining his grip on power.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you to ponder this final, provocative thought about the undisputed king of Olympus. Did Zeus actually break the cycle of fear and succession? Did the generational trauma of the Greek cosmos finally end with his reign? Or did Zeus just learn how to navigate the paranoia more cleverly, meaning the universe simply ran out of bigger monsters to throw at him? It's a fascinating way to look at the foundations of these ancient myths, isn't it?